There is no question that Springfield's infrastructure needs to be addressed. No one that I know of disputes this fact. During their budget presentation to the City Council, Director Mahoney and our Public Works staff laid out a comprehensive plan that will fix our streets, our sidewalks, and our sewers. The plan identifies each street, sidewalk, traffic signal, and sewer project that would be undertaken. It provides the specifics of the work to be undertaken and paid for with an $86.6 million bond issue that would improve our streets, sidewalks, and storm sewers. I have provided each alderman and the press a detailed list of projects for individual wards, and there is a list over there for all 10 wards, as well as the presentation that has been done by the Public Works Department. The comprehensive infrastructure plan that the Public Works also identifies $55 million of sewer projects to be undertaken over a 10-year period on a pay-as-you-go basis. Additionally, I have provided each member of the City Council a detailed list of the projects in their individual wards. As I indicated, no one disputes the need. The question is, how do we pay for it? I originally suggested that we raise our sales tax by 1% to take care of our streets, sidewalks, and storm sewers, and to double our sewer fee over a 4-year period to pay for our combined and sanitary sewers. There was no support to double the sewer fee over a 4-year period. I then suggested that we increase the sales tax by 1%, which would allow us for 0.5% increase to pay for the $86.6 million bond issue, another 0.25% increase to provide ongoing maintenance for our streets, sidewalks, and storm sewers, and the final 0.25% increase to pay for the $55 million of identified sanitary and combined sewer projects. At this time, I do not believe that there is support to pass a 1% increase in the sales tax to make those improvements happen. This morning, I filed a series of ordinances with the City Clerk's office that will offer specifics of how we could do the infrastructure projects that are so desperately needed. There are 4 separate ordinances. The first will ask for an increase of 0.5% to fund the $86.6 million bond issue that will fund the 3-year program to take care of the worst streets, sidewalks, and storm sewers. There will be a 15-year payoff to match the average life of asphalt overlay, and this would allow us to overlay 135 miles out of the 360 miles of asphalt streets in the city, and ultimately fix approximately 1/2 the streets in the city. The second will ask for an increase of 0.25% to fund the ongoing maintenance of our streets, sidewalks, and storm sewers. The third will ask for an increase of 0.25% to fund the $55 million of combined and sanitary sewers that have been identified, which will take approximately 12.5 years to fund. There has been extensive discussion about those 3 ordinances in terms of the approach that we would be using to fund these projects. A 4th ordinance will propose a new approach to paying for our sewers, which I believe are on the brink of collapse. The EPA has a program called the Clean Water Initiative, which would allow the city to borrow federal funds at a very low interest rate. This taxpayer-friendly approach would allow us to borrow $6 million a year from the EPA on an annual basis for 10 years, paying off each loan over a 20-year period. This approach would do $60 million of projects over a 10-year period. While I say that we would borrow $6 million a year, that could vary on a year-to-year basis depending upon our needs, but the plan would be to borrow $60 million over the 10-year period. To pay the loans off, we would need to increase the sewer fee by 5% per year for 10 years. The average household in Springfield uses 10 units of water, which averages to a $9.40 per month fee. Borrowing from the EPA means that for less than 50 cents a month more for the average household, we could pay off the loans and address a sewer system that in part is over 100 years old, that continues to flood basements and to burst at the seams. This would allow the city to implement a 30-year, $113 million sewer program, which would truly address our sewer problems now and into the future. One of the nicest things about this approach is that with this plan, we would not anticipate being required to spend money by the EPA on our sewers or being subject to fines. It is my hope that by providing alternatives to how we fund our infrastructure needs, that we can secure the support of at least 5 aldermen to address our needs. This will give aldermen the opportunity to pick and choose parts of the infrastructure program if they do not feel that they can support a complete program. As I said, I will support a 1% increase in the sales tax to pay for the $86.6 million bond issue, along with funds to provide for the ongoing maintenance of our streets, sidewalks, and storm sewers, and the $55 million of combined and sanitary sewer projects. I would also support a 3/4% increase in the sales tax to pay for the $86.6 million bond issue, along with funds to provide for the ongoing maintenance of our streets, sidewalks, and storm sewers, and increasing our sewer fee by 5% per year for the next 10 years to do a 30-year, $113 million sewer improvement program. The problems that we have today are a result of not funding infrastructure in the past. If we kick the can down the road again, it will only be more expensive, and we face the possibility of the EPA dictating a sewer plan that we will pay for, along with the possibility of fines. Our Public Works Department has developed a comprehensive plan to deal with our infrastructure needs. It is up to the City Council to determine how we are going to pay for it, and I am willing to work with the individual aldermen on any ideas that they may have to address our infrastructure needs. I would ask the people of Springfield to contact their aldermen and let them know that we need to support a plan to deal with our community's infrastructure needs. Now is the time for people who are driving on our streets on a daily basis and dealing with sewer problems in their neighborhoods to let their aldermen know that they want something done about these problems. And with that, I'd be happy to, if you would like to,
Sure.
to make any
Sure.
comments on
Thank you,
it.
Mayor.
Sorry. Technical difficulties.
That's okay.
Thank you.
They happen from
They
time to
happen.
time.
Technology's great. Thanks.
Well, I want to thank Mayor Houston, especially our Public Works Director, Mark Mahoney. As you know, I have been working with many aldermen on the City Council to find the 5 necessary votes. As we all probably know in this room, it's going to be slim pickings finding those 5 votes, and I think the approach today is an important one. Yesterday, I spoke on the Jim Leach Show, talking about the urgency to put ordinances forward. I think we've talked enough. I think the general public does know the various financial approaches the mayor has proposed, along with some aldermen on the council, and I think it's time to act. Driving here today to the press conference, I've come across a water main break, some other issues that are happening. It's happening in all parts of the city of Springfield, and I think it's important as leaders that talk stops and action delivers. And so it's time that we look at these ordinances. I told the mayor this morning that I still am in favor of a 1% sales tax increase. I'm not certain that we can get the votes for that, but I like the approach that he's delivered today. And I would be open-minded to a 1/4% sales tax increase and the sewer fee increase on a smaller scale. But here again, we have to deliver 5 votes for the mayor to be the 6th vote. And so I think over the next few weeks, the timeline is set. These will be introduced into first reading on Tuesday night, and we really have the next 2 weeks to talk to constituents, have those constituents talk to their aldermen, and see what happens at City Council. But as the mayor said, the longer we wait and kick this can down the road, the much more expensive our problems are going to get. And then with the federal EPA looming over our shoulder, I think this is a common sense approach with either the 1% sales tax or a combination of a 1/4% and 3/4% and the sewer rate increase. And it's the last thing we want to do as an elected officials are raise revenues on the taxpayers of the city of Springfield. But soon enough, we're going to have to deliver a plan, and I think this is a comprehensive plan that delivers what we need to complete here in the city. So thank you.
Questions?
Mayor, will the various components of the sales tax proposal broken down, will they be earmarked specifically so that if, say, Alderman approved one of the 1/4% but not the other one, would it have to go to what that ordinance calls for?
There are 4 ordinances, and the first one will deal with a 0.5% increase to be able to pay for that $86.6 million bond issue. So that is a separate ordinance. The next ordinance would raise the sales tax by 1/4%, and that would be used for ongoing street improvements. The third ordinance would raise the sales tax by another 1/4%, and that would be for sewers. And that would actually be a program that would cover our $55 million worth of identified projects and would take about 12.5 years. The fourth ordinance was the one we really have not had a lot of discussion about. And with that one, what we would be doing is borrowing $6 million a year for 10 years from the EPA. Right now, the interest rate on those loans are 1.93%. Over a 10-year period, they are going to go up. But that would only require us to raise the sewer fee by 5% per year, which is less, for the average household, less than 50 cents a month. And we would be able to develop a $113 million sewer project over the next 30 years as a result of it, to deal with not only the problems we have today, but really into the future, so that we could think in terms of having ultimately a 1% sales tax increase that covers everything. We could also think in terms of a 3/4% sales tax increase plus a 5% increase in the sewer tax over 10 years, and actually have a more comprehensive program for our sewers.
My question is, though, since it's broken down into parts, if they approve one part of it and not the other, do you have to stick with what that part is?
That is correct.
For under your plan?
If
they only approve the 1/4% for maintenance, you can only use it for maintenance, not for anything else.
That would be correct. That as we talk in terms of a 1% sales tax, that will produce approximately $17.6 million on an annual basis. So that what we would be doing, if we had the 0.5% increase, that goes to pay for the bond issue. If we had another 1/4%, that would be going for the ongoing maintenance of the streets, and then the final 1/4% would be going for sewers.
Do you have any reason to think that you've got 5 votes for any one of these 4 ordinances at this point?
At this point, we do not have 5 votes for anything. What we do have are 2 co-sponsors for the fourth ordinance that would involve the borrowing from the EPA, in that Alderman McMiniman has indicated that rather than bringing a separate ordinance that he was talking about, then he and Alderman Dove would like to be co-sponsors of this ordinance. And again, I think that by separating the ordinances out, beginning a discussion, there may be aldermen that will pick and choose between the different aspects where they might be able to support one part of it or 2 parts of it, but not another part. And again, I think the most important thing is that we have discussion, and that we encourage the people of the city of Springfield to contact their aldermen and say that we need to do something about these projects.
And Alderman Joe, would you prefer, I think you said you prefer just doing it all through sales tax and not raising the sewer fee?
Well, the mayor and I have talked about, this EPA approach is obviously an attractive approach. If you look at the 1% sales tax increase package, as the mayor just described, and you look at the EPA proposal, the federal EPA, the loan program, you're dealing with about the same pot of money, same dollar amounts. Under the sales tax increase of 1%, roughly $5 million of that would go toward sewer projects, and under this scenario, with the federal EPA and the loan program, it'd be about $6 million. So it's one or the other. I would be open to supporting a combination of a sales tax increase and this attractive program. I've been out talking to small business owners. They're concerned too if we force everything onto the sales tax. But I know there were many of us aldermen that didn't want, if there was a tax increase, we didn't want it going on 100% on the taxpayers of the city of Springfield, as you and I talked about yesterday. And so that's why we took the sales tax approach. But if you look at it over the long term, the loan program from the federal EPA is very attractive. I'm not convinced some aldermen will support both, and I feel we have to address not only infrastructure maintenance but also sewers. And so we'll see what happens with this scenario.
And personally, as I've said all along, is the sewers are a bigger problem than the streets. I mean, in my mind, there's no question. I mean, people drive the streets on a daily basis, so they understand what the problem is. Unless you're having a problem in your neighborhood, you really don't understand that there is a sewer problem and the age of the sewer. When you look at some of these pictures and you look at something like that that gives the condition of what a pipe looks like when you dig it out, that's the condition of a lot of the sewer system within our community. And again, we think in terms of the constant breaks and things that we're having, that's very, very expensive to deal with on an ongoing basis. So it's costing us money one way or the other.
Have these EPA loans guaranteed that you will get these?
They do have funds. We have, in the conversations that we have had with the EPA, they have not indicated that there would be any problem in terms of doing this. There is a time frame, and it would probably take us till about next July to have everything in place in order to be able to receive the first loan. But when we would do that, we would be submitting a 5-year program. At the end of the first 5 years, then we would be submitting a second 5-year program. But the beauty of this is that if we develop our own program, we really don't have to worry about the EPA coming in and dictating a program for us.
You mentioned co-sponsors for the sewer fee increase. Do you have co-sponsors for the other 3 ordinances?
I do not at this point, but I do know that we have 4 aldermen that are strongly supporting a 1% increase in the sales tax to cover the entire package.
Is there precedent for the EPA loan? Is there a successful project in Springfield or in Central Illinois you can point to as a success for what you're proposing here?
Well, first of all, if you just take a look here in Springfield with the sanitary district, they are using these loans to help finance what they are doing in terms of the improvement of the sanitary district treatment facilities.
So that's on paper, someone will give it back and fine when they apply for that.
I would,
with it.
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mayor, you had initially said that you didn't want to bring anything forward until you had the 5 votes. Why the change in strategy?
Well, I listened to you. We have been discussing these proposals for some time. We're not making progress, so it really is a matter of looking at this and laying out the specifics and asking the general public to contact their aldermen and say it is time to do something about this. And I really hope that the general public will be in contact with their aldermen saying, we've got these problems, we need to do something about it, we've got a comprehensive program to do it. It is going to involve more money, but I think what we're talking about is very reasonable. And if you look at the presentation that has been put together by our Public Works Department, if we don't do these projects now in terms of the roads, they're estimating within, I believe, 3 years that it's going to cost us about another $21 million. So, I mean, there is a penalty for doing nothing. And part of the problems that we have today is that for too long we've done nothing. We need to deal with the infrastructure, and we need to deal with it on a comprehensive basis. and this is what we are offering the people of the city of Springfield. This is something that's important for the future of the city of Springfield.
A quick follow-up for former Alderman Mahoney. Is this something that if you still had a vote, you'd vote on? Is this something that gives your department what it needs to do, what you think it needs to do?
But absolutely, I mean, you never have too much money for infrastructure, but what this is based on is professionals looking at this. And in some ways we have the easy part of it because we have professionals. We have our city engineer, Nate Bottom, we have our sewer engineer, John Higginbottom, and they're responsible for putting this plan together and working with others in the community that are professional engineers and coming up with something that is realistic and something that has to be done. So this is not elected officials' plan. It's not a politician's plan of projects. It's something that they came up with.
So this is not just the politically feasible, this is advantageous for the city and for the taxpayers?
The mayor directed us, the Department of Public Works, back probably around December, to come up with exactly, basically a report to the council through the budgeting process of the condition of our infrastructure in the city of Springfield. I think we all know it's easy to drive and see the deterioration, not so much in the sewers unless it's backing up in your basement or you have some drainage issues. But he asked us to lay out what the conditions are and then lay out a proposal to repair it on the maintenance side, get us to this point where we can take care of what we have, make those repairs, and put us on a path to maintain our infrastructure in the future. And that's what we did in the budget process when we presented it to the council in January. And to the credit to the council, I think each and every one of them understands that need. They understand that it is a significant problem, and we're very receptive to what we propose to them. The real issue is, finding a way to pay for that, and that's what the mayor and several of the council members are working very hard on, and that's why they're here today.
So what it all boils down to is yes, you feel that it will accomplish what you need to do?
Yes.
And if I could follow up with that for just 1 second. When the city passed a 0.25% sales tax for infrastructure, and God help us if we didn't have that 0.25% today, it was Alderman Mahoney who actually got that passed through the city council. And literally without his effort, because that was basically dead on arrival. And he was the one that picked it up and got that passed. Right after my election, I called him. And the reason that I called him, I knew he was passionate about the infrastructure needs of the city of Springfield. I also knew that he was a person who had come from a core inner city ward that had the frustration of dealing with the Public Works Department and not being able to get things done. He also had the frustration of dealing with constituents where he couldn't help them get what needs to be done. And in the first conversation that we had, we talked in terms of the need for a comprehensive infrastructure program, and that is what has been presented. That is what this city needs. That's what the city needs for its future. I couldn't think of a better person to be operating our Public Works Department, and I think that the members of the City Council who work with him on a daily type of basis really recognize the job that he and his staff have done in terms of really turning around our Public Works Department. I think that the things that he emphasized, these projects are projects based on the fact that they are the ones that have the greatest need within the city of Springfield. It was not done to try to distribute projects across wards or anything like that. As it turns out, we've got these problems all over the city. It's not concentrated in one area. It's in every ward of the city, and that's because the city has not invested as it should have in previous years. And we can either invest now or we will pay later. It's no question about that.
Mayor, you talked about the importance of infrastructure to the future of the community. What effect does a sales tax or a sewer tax fee have on the economic future of the community?
In all honesty, I think very little. I would first of all point out that when you go out to Legacy Point, that you have a business service district that has 1 additional % over the current 8% sales tax. So they're charging 9%. I've yet to hear a single person mention the 9% sales tax at Legacy Point. When we look at the cities that surround the Springfield area and the ones that I look at on a regular basis, Decatur has a 9%. sales tax. Champaign-Urbana is at 8.75%. We have Bloomington Normal at 7.75%. Peoria, I believe, is at 8% or somewhere right around that, but they have a district within the city of Peoria that adds a 1.5% sales tax to that. I don't see any of those places suffering in terms of sales. I think it's very, very easy in terms of the average person to pay the sales tax. And of course, we get that distributed beyond the people of the city of Springfield because we have a lot of visitors that come here on a regular basis. But one of the things to keep in mind that it doesn't really make any difference whether you're making $25,000, $50,000, or $100,000. When you think in terms of a 1% increase in terms of the sales tax, you know, you make your money, first thing you do is you get your taxes taken out. They take out for your insurance. You've got other things that are being deducted. You usually have a house payment, car payment, you have to pay for food, and when you really get down to the point where you've got disposable income that you're paying for, it's a relatively small dollar amount regardless of whether you're making $25,000 or $100,000, and when you put 1% onto that, it really is not that large a dollar amount for what we're going to be able to get out of this. And it's not a matter of choice. This needs to be done. It's a question of when we're going to do it and how we're going to pay for it.